People say that happiness comes from within, but I do not feel that most of the time. How can I shift this within myself? Well, the reason you don't feel that most of the time is because you're in victim consciousness. And it's important to, as a prerequisite, as the foundation of all truth, to understand that happiness is a choice. It is not a consequence. It is not it's a consequence of choosing to be happy, but it's not a consequence of circumstance, it's not the part of the cause and effect of your life's initiations and circumstances. It doesn't fall into that milieu, that this happened, that made me happy. This happened, that made me sad. No, it's this happened, and that just is what it is. And I chose to be happy about it, or happy in life. This happened, my car got hit, got broadsided by someone who ran a red light, and I can choose, I have the ability, the permission, the power to choose to be happy, to be sad, to be angry, to be vengeful, to sue, to be a monster, to cry, feel pitiful and pathetic, and pity myself. All choices. They are unrelated to the accident. They actually are. Now, most people in 27 states, I might be put in jail for saying that, but who cares? It's still the truth. The truth is not affected by anyone's opinions. It simply is. The action and the reaction are independent and mutually exclusive. Now, does that mean it's not tempting? I'm not saying that at all. It's very tempting. And it does help tempt one to lean towards certain reactions, because those are behavioral patterns that most people have come to adopt and accept and share with one another. But again, that doesn't make it truth. It doesn't make it truth at all. Truth is, I created this happening in my life. I magnetized a car plowing into mine for lessons that I need to learn for my own growth and expansion and furthering my journey into my soul's full liberation. So what are those reasons? What are those lessons? What are the gifts to be gleaned from this? Why did I create this, choose this, and make this happen in my own life? And put the cherry on the cake, I'm grateful that this happened, because it's going to teach me and is teaching me so much and helping me grow as a human being. Back to that magic word again, gratitude. So your question was, how do I shift this within myself? I just showed you how. To show that you are the driver, you are the screenwriter, the producer, the director, the star, and the audience of your film, which is your life. And when you see that, couple that with the knowingness that happiness is a choice, not a reaction, and then you are now empowered. You're illuminated and empowered to choose to be happy and not be defined by your circumstance. That's one of the character traits of a liberated soul, of a God-realized being. You no longer grant your ephemeral circumstances, and they all are, to define you. I am a being of pure love, of unconditional love, who in this moment is experiencing a car accident. And in that moment, a temporary experience could be fear or sadness or anger, but those are temporary experiences. They do not define me. And in that knowingness, that deep knowingness of self as love, they get eaten up like a Pac-Man, just eats those up and helps me return to that homeostasis, that centered, balanced place of bliss and love. And I stay wisely attuned and aligned with why I created it, so I can learn from it. To go into this Pollyanna, oh, it's all good and it's all wonderful, that's still victim consciousness. That's spiritual victim consciousness. That's just as bad as someone who becomes a rageaholic and wants to sue and take the person's house away and blah, blah, blah. They're both victims. To say, oh, it's all wonderful and peachy and everything's love. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, no, it's not that pleasant. Rather, it didn't happen, but it did happen. I needed it to happen. I created it happening. Why? What's it teaching me? How is it inviting me to change? What's the lesson? What's the gift? And then, is there restitution to be made? What do I need to do to clean this up, restore balance, and recreate myself in a whole new way as greater love? That's a centered, empowered place. And there might be arcs of emotion that come up in that. But again, when you stay centered in truth, the emotion moves through you like a breeze. I'm not saying have no emotion or think everything's wonderful. I mean, at the absolute, sure. I created it, so I'm grateful for it. Doesn't mean don't feel. Feeling is okay. It's necessary and it's healthy. Same with anger and sadness. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's when you add victimhood to it and then put in non-loving qualities of wanting revenge, justice, projection, then it gets really ugly and nasty. But you have a good cry over it, or it makes you angry, or you choose to feel angry, great. But happiness is a state of being. It's a state that comes from knowing the self as love. That's what sources a state of being known as happiness. And that is not transient. That is to the core of your existence, and it's independent of circumstance, so long as you say so. When you choose to step out of saying so, you become a victim, and then the tail's wagging the dog again. So I hope that's helped you to see, beloved, and all beloveds who, to whom that question applies, which is pretty much everybody, how happiness comes from within, and how it is a state of being and a free-willed choice, not a reaction, or an involuntary reaction or behavior pattern or response to a stimulus.